Welcome to another Art City Tattoo tutorial. In this video I'm gonna show you guys how I made this awesome Eeyore tattoo. And towards the end of the video I'm going to show you guys a quick trick that I use to help me visualize the process a lot easier, and it just helps me become more productive and get the work done faster. Some of the challenges that I had when I was doing this tattoo was sizing it to the correct dimensions. This is a tattoo that my client wanted to be a bit smaller than what I originally created, but I decided to make it bigger because I knew I was going to be able to put a little bit more detail into the design, and also overall it was going to make the tattoo process a lot easier for me. One thing that you have to understand when you're doing a tattoo is that size doesn't matter, and it's not really going to save you any time. If anything, a tattoo like this at a smaller scale is going to be more difficult to do. Therefore, it's going to take more time than doing it larger. So a lot of times I like blowing these up because I can work more freely and I'm not so concerned with being so precise. One thing I was dealing with in this tattoo as well was the placement on the body. It was on the side of the thigh. So what that means is the client has to lay on his hip, and it's very painful over long periods of time. So he was having a hard time sitting and being still for prolonged periods of time. And on top of that, obviously the pain of the tattoo, which it's hard to take as well over 10 hours, which is what this tattoo took. So imagine sitting in a position that hurts on top of getting a tattoo that hurts. So it wasn't very easy for my client, therefore it wasn't very easy for me. A few things that I wanted to make sure that I got right on this tattoo right from the get-go was the color palette. I wanted to make sure that I used a color palette that was going to create the highest amount of contrast possible, which is something that I'm very known for in the art community, creating these pieces that just pop. And the way that I do it is by using colors that contrast one another next to each other. By doing that, you create a push and pull visually, and that is going to help you create a higher visual impact on your tattoos. He wanted it to have a little bit of an urban vibe because he likes the street art that I make, and he wanted Eeyore to sort of represent a lot of his personality and his character. So that's why we went for the hoodie and the jacket and the snapback hat and all that stuff. And I used these elements to combine him with the blue. I also made sure that his snout was very warm in color. That way everything played against the blue, and it would help just make the tattoo overall sing. So right off the bat with this tattoo, one thing that I always make sure to do is to put a small, very small outline around the entire piece. Why? Because this outline is going to hold the piece together and is going to create a solid structure in which the colors can sit in later. If you don't put an outline on it, the tattoo does not have enough contrast with the skin. It's just gonna look kind of wishy-washy over the years. Now, another thing that you can do if you don't want to put the outline is you can put a background on it, but in this case we didn't want to put a background on it. In my personal opinion, if I put the background on it, I would still put the outline on it, and that would basically push the tattoo forward, and it would keep the background behind him. So something for you guys to consider. But for the stencil, actually I do prefer doing stenciling by hand, but it just takes too much time and I have too many things going on. So lately I've been using an Epson printer with the stenciling ink that you can get on Amazon. I can actually link it down below so you guys can get that, and I can also link the printer if you guys want to get that as well. Altogether it may cost you anywhere between $300 to $400, but it's a great investment and it's going to save you a lot of time. And I have my color wheel here ready, and it's time to get started. I'll usually start my tattoos from the bottom all the way to the top. And in this first pass, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I take care of all my blacks, and I also take care of basically every occlusion that is in the tattoo. And what I mean by occlusion is everywhere in the tattoo where light is not going to enter, and also any outlines that need to be done. Then after that, I start working my way either from side to side or from top to bottom. The idea is to always make sure that your hand is not in the way for the next part of the tattoo, and you're not smearing ink into the part of the tattoo that's already been done. So you can find whichever strategy you want to make that happen, but just make sure that you have that in mind when you're doing it. Once I have all my occlusions and I've already marked everything, I start getting my magnums and I started putting in all the textures for the hair, starting from the darker colors to the lighter colors. So at this point here, I'm working on the bottom of the beard. I already have my blacks in, and I'm essentially just putting my mid-tones in, leaving the lighter tones to be completed later. You want to make sure that you're careful with your hand movements here, because you want to be able to create a hair stroke pattern, and you're gonna do that by putting your magnum on the side and moving it in the direction as a pendulum. That way you get the strokes that gives you the effect that it looks like hair. I wanted to get all of the bottom part of the face and the neck done. This part was very dark in values, so I wanted to make sure that I got that out of the way. That way I could start moving into the snout and it wasn't going to stain any of my colors on the top. And as you guys can see here, I started working on the mouth. I got some of my mid-tones in there. So after the neck, I went ahead and started working on the jacket, and I also worked on the hoodie, because the hoodie was a little bit lighter in color. It was actually warmer than the neck, so I wanted to make sure that I got it after the neck, because the neck, if I would have done the neck first, it would have stained the rest of my colors. You want to take your time, like work slowly, there's no rush. You want to make sure that you start building up this resistance to the anxiety. You know, when you're tattooing for so many hours, you start becoming anxious because you want to get things done quick. And tattooing is a process that just takes quite a little bit of time, and you have to be patient, you have to be cognizant of that, and just give it the time that it deserves so it can look the right way. And it's looking really good by now. I'm very happy with the process, how far where we were at. I'm gonna start working on the snout now, and I was moving my needle side to side because I wanted to get a little bit of texture in there. I wanted to make sure that it had an impression of being a little bit fuzzy, so I started doing these side to side movements just to give that sort of visual hint to the eye. Again, I'm working very slowly, taking my time, and making sure that I'm very thorough in every single part of the process. There's no rush to get this done. If there's not enough time, you can always have the client come back for a second session or a second day. I had done all dark tones and the mid-tones on the mouth of Eeyore, so I decided to start working on the hat at this point. Why? Because I knew that if I worked on the hat later, I was going to stain the rest of the face. I figured I might as well get the hat done first, get it out of the way, and then I could comfortably work on the face and then finish doing the snout later. So once the hat was done, I started moving on to the darkest part of the face. You know, putting all my dark tones, my blacks, my mid-tones, and just taking my time. I was using, I believe, it was either a 5 Magnum or a 7 Magnum, I'm not sure. And you don't have to concern yourself so much with the size. Just gotta make sure that you pick a size that works for the placement that you're doing. Imagine your needles as being a brush, and you just use the size of the brush that works for you. It doesn't matter. If you could use a bigger Magnum, you can as well. I actually like using smaller Magnums because I'm able to put textures in there, and the piece doesn't come out too polished, which I actually don't like the way that looks. I like the texture a little bit more. So I was really happy with the result of that side of the face. By the way, for the ears, I used the left ear, I used a 5 Magnum to get it done, and the right ear I used a 9 round shader, and you guys can see that I got a very similar result on both ears, but I was more happy with the 5 Magnum. So I wish I would have done the 5 Magnum from the beginning. it would have saved me a lot of time. It was a lot quicker to get it done that way, and it would have saved me a lot of time. But this is what you gotta do when you're tattooing. You gotta try things out, see what works, see what doesn't, and just make notes and move forward. And now that I'm done with that side of the face, I decided to start working on the left side of the snout. It's looking pretty good so far. Okay, so now that I'm happy with the left side, I'm gonna move on and start doing the right side. The reason why I did the left side first was because it was the darker part of the face, and like I've told you guys many times before, I like doing the darker colors first and then the lighter colors after. That way my colors don't stain one another. Working very patiently, getting the textures into the face, and trying to be patient with my client as well. At this point, he's having a very hard time, kind of just convincing him that he has to stay. I tell him that I usually tell my clients that everybody takes the pain, which is true. Most people take the pain and they take the long sessions. So it does help them create mental resilience, because, you know, if other people did it, why not them? So one trick that I use to help me out to get the tattoo done faster is that I always have 2 copies of reference. One is a regular copy, the other one is a copy that I use the technique called posterizing, that is done on Photoshop. I believe you can posterize images as well on Adobe Illustrator on your iPad. So if you don't have a computer with Photoshop, you can use your iPad and use Adobe Illustrator. And this is the final result here. I'm super happy with the tattoo. I wish I would have been able to finish the letters, because I feel like those letters were gonna give it that last pop that it needed. But it's okay, we're gonna get that done in the next session, and we're also gonna take advantage and do any kind of touch up that the tattoo may need. But all in all, I'm super happy with it. By the way, if you guys haven't seen my full Super Mario tutorial, make sure that you check it out. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you have an amazing week. Stay curious and stay creative, and make sure that you guys are subscribing to the channel, leaving comments, and hitting the bell button. That way you guys can be up to date with any new content that I put out. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one. Bye.